Welcome everybody to this week's collective learning meeting. Please remember to mute your microphones unless you want to ask a question. Feel free to use the chat box. If you type a question there, I, Christine Tang, can ask the question for you. Our presenter today is Ivan Taylor. Ivan Taylor has a PhD in public policy, retired from the Center for Operational Research of Defense and Development, Canada, and in his retirement founded Policy Dynamics. Please take us away, Ivan.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Where is my presentation? Oh, here we go. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what was going on. Okay, yeah, my name is Ivan Taylor, and I'm from Ontario, Canada. And my presentation today is on the value of mentorship in learning system dynamics. I'll talk about the one-on-one mentorship program of the System Dynamics Society. I want to show you some videos that I made for the System Dynamics Society on challenges and best practices that some of my mentees are having, and some of the things I like to share with my mentees. Then I'm going to go through a list of projects that my mentees are working on, and I'll have some concluding thoughts, and I'll talk about how to apply. So they recommend that if you want to join the one-on-one mentorship program, that you have a basic knowledge of system dynamics, possibly have taken a course or done some self-learning in system dynamics. So you have a basic knowledge. It's often useful to be working on a project, a system dynamics project, to keep you motivated. And usually, you know, people who join the mentoring program are struggling with figuring out how to apply SD to their project. And then they're looking for help and guidance. So the way I usually do the mentoring is that the mentees work at their own pace on their own projects. And they can use any SD software that they wish. But I generally recommend that we meet once a week for an hour at a time. But obviously, this is not always possible. So, if a mentee or even I have to cancel a meeting, we will inform the other person, and then we'll postpone the meeting for that week. But generally, I think working on a weekly basis keeps my mentees motivated and working towards their goal of completing their project. And now, as you'll see later, you need to apply to the System Dynamics Society to get assigned a mentor. Okay, now I'm going to show some videos that I made sort of as advertisements of the mentoring program. And I'll start off with this video called Taking the Mystery Out of System Dynamics, and then maybe we can discuss it. Hello, my name's Ivan Taylor, and I've been a mentor for 1.5 years, and I've really enjoyed working with people to learn system dynamics. However, I feel that there's some misunderstanding, and that people coming into the field think that there might be something mysterious or magical about the way system dynamics works. So I'd like to show you quickly the way system dynamics works. So here's a small model with a population and an inflow of births and an outflow of deaths. So if I run this model, and I look at the results, I can see here time moving in this column at a half a year at a time, and the inflow of births in this column, the outflow of deaths in this column, and the population in this column. So the way the population is calculated is that you take the value in the previous time step and you take the inflow minus the outflow multiplied by the time step and add it to the previous value. And now you have a value here of 100.5 after a 0.5 of a year. And then the next time step, you take the 100.5 and you take the inflow and the outflow and you multiply it by 0.5 and you get a new value for the stock. And basically, System Dynamics just walks through time, adding the inflow and subtracting the outflow times the time step to the stock. And there's really nothing mysterious about System Dynamics. So I hope this helps you get started. Okay, that was the first video. What did you think of that? Did anybody have any comments? One of the problems was I was limited to 2 minutes for these videos. So I had to keep the ideas pretty short. Okay, let's go on to the next video. It's on the importance of units.
Ivan, what was the 2-minute limit for?
I guess for doing commercials. It was sort of like a little commercial for the mentoring program, and so they said that I should do a 2-minute limit. Martha, do you have a good reason for that?
Yes, I do. That was transmitted to me, who did the reach out from Rafat. He was very emphatic to keep this to a 2 limit, very hard stop. His reasonings, I don't know all of them, but Rafat is Rafat. So
yeah, I think it basically, was supposed to be like a little commercial. So it's, maybe commercials are, a minute or 2 minutes. So that's what my impression was.
I also got the sense from Rafat actually that with students, not attention span, but the time that they seem to be bouncing down into various landing places of learning on their learning journey. It's a 2-minute time span, it seems, and then off they go to something else where they feel their time needs to be differently spent. So it's clearly a teaser. It's not, obviously it's not in depth, but he was very emphatic on that 2 minutes.
This isn't supposed to be a substitute for the mentoring program. It's supposed to be encouraging people to join the mentoring program. So it's not supposed to replace the mentoring program.
Yeah, if I can chime in, a couple of thoughts just passing through my mind as I think about this issue. One is there's 2 categories of people. One, they don't know what system dynamics is, and that's really, I guess, not who you're trying to address this to, because you've said they're ideally working on a project and they're familiar with it, I guess. But one class of people I encounter all the time is people have no idea what the heck it is, and you don't have like a day to explain it to them. You've got an elevator speech, 30 seconds. So how do you convey in 30 seconds to someone who's never heard of it before what it is, and hence maybe interest them in taking another step, right? And I always tell the students, 9 times out of 10, you're going to talk to somebody who is interested in a particular problem in a particular domain, and they don't care about the technical stuff. So if you go right into nonlinear ordinary differential equations and Runge-Kutta methods and stuff like that, forget about it. They float to the ceiling. They want to hear something like, well, it's a technique for designing or redesigning the structure of a system so it behaves better. Or it's a technique for helping experts and stakeholders reach an informed consensus. But anyway, I don't think that's, the commercial doesn't seem to be directed to those folks. The other folks are folks who already know kind of sort of what system dynamics is, but they need help. And I think the message there I found that's most important is a mentor can help you learn the best practices for building an original model, because of course, anybody can get a hold of the software and it's not that hard to get going, and you can very quickly build really horrible models and show the world this is what system dynamics is. Look at my horrible model, but you don't even know it's a horrible model. So, you know, conveying that the mentorship program perhaps is intended to help somebody learn the best practices in our field so that they can produce original models that are of high quality, I think is, wow, do we need that in our field? So that's just sort of stream of consciousness when, you know, I'm hearing about this problem, like how would I make, or if I was going to give you 2 minutes, what would I say? And
Yeah.
I think that's where mentors can really be effective.
Yeah, I think like I do focus on best practices. I think in a number of these videos, but again, like you say, it's very hard to really do justice to best practices in a 2-minute video. But if you don't mind, I'll move on to the next video.
Wait, Martha has her virtual
Martha
hand up.
has her hand up. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Something that might be additionally helpful, I forgot to mention actually, is this idea originated actually in the marketing committee, and it was conceived to be a collection of videos which address the most common challenges of students who are with mentors. It was a reach out actually both to mentors and to mentees, but only mentors responded to my reach out email. And so it was designed to show brief essences of the teaching strategies for which the mentors were finding are the most common learning challenges they seem to be getting presented with by their mentees. So that was the original inspiration for this whole project.
Yeah, I think though it has evolved since then, and I think they're working on maybe some other ideas. But I did take up the challenge of like I said, working with best practices and people and problems people were having commonly in applying or learning system dynamics. Okay, I'll move on to the next video, which is on the importance of units. Hello, my name is Ivan Taylor, and I've been a mentor for about a year and a half, and I really enjoy working with people all over the world, teaching the best practices of system dynamics. And one of the things that I've noticed challenges people starting out in system dynamics is the idea of units. So here is a small model that I built of the population of Canada. And we have an initial population of 38 million people. We have a life expectancy of 82 years. We have the deaths is the population divided by the life expectancy in people per year. And we have the births is the population times the birth rate in people per year. So now the question is, what is this birth rate idea? So if we look up the birth rate for Canada, we see that the birth rate is 10.3 people per 1,000 people per year. So this is people, the units here is people per year. And it's good practice to check your units every time you make a change to the model. So I'll check the units and it's okay. And if I run the model, I can look at the results and you can see that the population is declining. So this is a small model, but I just wanted to show you the idea of the importance of units and the importance of units checking each time you make a change to the model. Any comments on that, or?
Yeah, Len would be happy.
Yeah. Well, I think your software as well, Insight Maker, I don't think that even works unless you get the units right. I think it stops you from even running the model until you get the units right. Isn't that correct, Gene?
And unless you just happen to leave them all out, and then it won't care.
Oh, I
But
see.
if you start using them, it will ensure consistency.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent. Okay, I'll move on to the next video on managing model complexity. And that may be something that Mike was referring to. Hello, my name is Ivan Taylor, and I've been a mentor for the last 1.5 years. And I really enjoy working with people all over the world, teaching the best practices in system dynamics. And one of the challenges I see that people starting out in system dynamics have is handling model complexity. And one of the reasons that models can get complex is that the software is very easy to use. So here's a model that one of my mentees is working on, and he shows the whole model on one page, and it looks to me to be very complex, although he has done some work to manage the complexity by providing color codes for the various sectors in the model. But I would personally prefer my mentees to use a different approach to handling model complexity, and that is to use multiple views that are available in Vensim. So this is another model that one of my mentees is working on, and it's for the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And he's got this model set up as 17 different views, one for each of the Sustainable Development Goals. And each of these views is connected to the other views through these shadow variables. So you have a stock for the Sustainable Development Goal, and then you have connections to the other Sustainable Development Goals through these shadow variables that are calculated on other views. And I think this is a good way to manage the complexity, both for the modeler and for the audience. Oops.
Ivan, Martha has her hand up. Martha, would you like to ask?
Or we can save to the end. No, I just have a comment, and I read in the chat, Jean-Jacques mentioning about the steps back to the importance of units, which I will say, as a relative newcomer to the field who learned through Diana Fisher's teaching manuals, she's very emphatic about visually showing the dimensions of the units, as Jean-Jacques says, and it's anathema to me how anyone can continue to learn system dynamics and the fundamental concepts of stock and flow without including visually the units in every single portrayal of the model. I know it looks a little bit more visually complex on the page, but it's stock of system dynamics models are an exercise in units consistency, and I think that's the more important feature than even the name put on. And I would also make a shout out for standardizing of that best practice. I think that is a best practice. John Sturman unfortunately raked over an unfortunate graduate student during the conference because they had not included visually the units in their presentation. I mean, John Sturman is on fire about this issue. And I would invite also to consideration of the standardization of the terms. When I learned through Diana Fisher's books that a rate, and I see these words used interchangeably, stocks and flows, rates and accumulations. And yet now I see in Ivan's model example here, the use of birth rate not being a flow. And I think that may be confusing to students. I developed a personal practice when I was building on Diana Fisher's teaching methods, that I started to use the term birth fraction because it's a unitless quantity, instead of the birth rate, which I thought was births per week. Like when I think of a rate, I think of something per time, but it doesn't have to be. But a standardization, even the use of the word of life expectancy, I would replace that with the word average lifespan, which connotes that this has got a time dimension in its expression of units. Those are just throw out, almost desperate cry outs for that kind of entertainment of best practices for the early people at their most fundamental psychological, academic, intellectual attempt to understand the system dynamics modeling in particular.
Did you have any other comments, Jean-Jacques?
I do have a comment about the model views. I think here comes the issue with using different software to showing best practices. Because if you use Stella, then you have the use of modules that would help into reducing complexity, yet maintaining the links, the causal links between the segments of the model.
Right.
To me, views just defragment the model and just have a huge cognitive load into thinking about ghost variables between these different views. So I think the objective is is reducing that visual complexity, but I think showing this top level causal structure that shows the segments of the model, the sectors or whatever, is helpful. And I think Insight Maker does have that capability. So that's an important attempt to reduce it, but I think it's I don't know how to make it between different software. So it become a practice of having multiple levels or keeping the hypothesis or the dynamic hypothesis a higher level. So this is my comment.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think one of the best practices in just in software development is to develop modules that are loosely connected with other modules and keeping things that are highly connected in the same module. I think we can definitely use that best practice from software engineering in our work in system dynamics. But I agree with you that the display of the model at a high level is very important. And I think in VenSim, there is a need to maybe have a high level view and a more low level view of the model that can get that kind of presentation across. Okay, I'll move on to the last video. Hello, my name is Ivan Taylor, and I've been mentoring for about 1.5 years now. And I really enjoy working with people all over the world, teaching the best practices of system dynamics. And one of the things that I found that often challenges people starting out in system dynamics is the idea of model calibration. So I just want to show you here in this short video how I was able to calibrate a small model. So here is the model, and it's a model of a small business that goes through a number of stages. And at each stage, we have to estimate the success rate, the continuation rate, and the failure rate. So we collected some data, and we can see here that the number of small businesses was growing up until 2008, and then there was a drop in the number of small businesses during the financial crisis, and then there was an increase after the financial crisis. So we decided that instead of modeling just a single failure rate, we would model 2 failure rates, one for the normal situation and one for the financial crisis. So I did this using, it's not the only way to do it, but the way I did it was I minimized the squared error between the model and the data by changing the failure rates. And this is the results of the calibration. And you can see that we got a good match between the data and the model. And that gives us confidence now to go back to our VenSim model and use these failure rates to project into the future. So if we look at the projections, we can see the historical data from 1994 with the financial crisis drop here, and then an increase up until 2020. And then if we assume that the COVID crisis leads to a drop in small businesses similar to the financial crisis, we might see a drop like this before it returns to normal. So here I hope this is helping you see the value of calibration in building confidence in your models. Okay, those are the 4 videos that I made. If there's any other things I could make videos on, you can definitely contact me, and I can try to produce some more videos if you think they're going to be useful. Is there any comments in general on these videos? Okay, I'll just move on with the rest of the presentation. So the rest of the presentation, I'm talking about the different projects that my mentees are working on, and just to show the scope of the application of system dynamics, so that maybe people who are starting out in system dynamics might be able to see that their project would fit into into this system dynamics application area. So I'm going to go through these projects country by country. So I'm working with a fellow in Bangladesh on a model of dairy farming and the circular economy, where he's looking at the possibility of turning dairy waste into things like biofertilizer and biogas, and increasing the profitability of the farm and reducing the waste in the farm. So that's one of the projects. I'm also working with a different fellow in Bangladesh who's working on trying to resolve a problem of pollution in a major river, where he wants to show that by using various techniques of reducing the pollution, that can improve the health and well-being of the communities around the river. I'm working with Martha here and another woman in the United States on veterinary applications. I'm working with a Kenyan and a Colombian fellow on COVID-19's effect on the trust in government. I'm working with a Costa Rican fellow on financial risk in banking. I'm working with a lady from Nigeria and a lady from India on small business clusters and what makes them attractive to small businesses. I'm working with the same people on oil mining and drilling and the social, economic, and environmental impacts of that. I'm working with a fellow from Iran on the COVID vaccination program there. I'm working with a fellow in Nigeria on energy security and the possibility of using renewable energy to replace the need or the problems with the insecurity of the electrical grid in Nigeria. And I'm working with a Nigerian fellow who's in the part of the budding African Space Agency on the problem of space debris. I'm working with 3 people, Pakistan, Costa Rica, Colombia, on controlling corruption through institutional improvement. I'm working on with the same Pakistani fellow on a model of economic growth based on enhancing economic growth through improvement in institutions. I'm working with a fellow from United Kingdom and another lady from the Netherlands on the gender pay gap. And with the same fellow, I'm working with on refugee crisis, which I think is a very serious problem in the world right now. And then in the United States, I'm working with a lady who's working on climate change and the Catholic Church, and a group of people on women of color entrepreneurs and the challenges they're facing to get their business started and become successful. And then I'm working with a number of people on increasing diversity in organizations. I'm working with a fellow, like I think I showed in the video, on the UN Sustainability Development Goals. I'm working with a fellow on in the United States on mealworm farming, where he's looking at the possibility of mealworms eating styrofoam and also, you know, getting into developing protein for human consumption. And I'm also working with a lady in United States on conserving water in the West, on the West Coast. And I'm working with a fellow from Zambia on cattle farming. So I hope you can see from this list that there are many, many applications of system dynamics that are useful. So concluding thoughts, I think that I personally think that mastering system dynamics is difficult. And I think that classroom learning and self-learning may be insufficient to master system dynamics. And what you need to do is you need to build many models yourself. And a mentor can help you learn the best practices in system dynamics fairly effectively and quickly. So basically, this is my little end thing on if you know how to fill in the form, and there's the website for the application form, and you answer a few questions, and then you'll get assigned a mentor, and you can start the program. So that's my presentation, and so.
Ivan, I'm amazed that your mind hasn't turned to mush. It's a daunting list.
Yeah, that I know that that keeps me pretty busy, but I'm learning a lot. And one of the things I really enjoy is the international nature of the ability of Zoom to be able to work with all these different people on a weekly basis around the world. And so, you know, I think that there's almost no barriers to our capabilities of spreading the word about system dynamics at this point.
I would like to add, only as a fan of Ivan's, and we're trying to get a Canadian chapter of the SDS going. Ivan is one of the greatest ambassadors I have found for welcoming the world, really the professional communities outside of system dynamics, who these are mature individuals. I'm not the only example. My colleague, Dr. Suzanne Parzaldu, is another one, who are in these other professions, many other professions, and they come to, so they discover and are incredibly inspired, and there is such frustration for them to advance their desire and passion to evolve their professional skills in their primary domain. And Ivan has, I wish there was 1,000 Ivans for the System Dynamics Society. I know there are other Ivans out there in other persons, but the attitude and the open-heartedness and the open-mindedness I find of Ivan is very, very representative overall of the System Dynamics Society, and it's a real pleasure to have met him, and very inspiring for me, who needs a leg up in some personal modeling activities, to know that he's there to help. I have that unconditional sense from him. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Martha. Those are very nice words. But yeah, I think like with the Canadian chapter of the System Dynamics Society, there's very few people in Canada who do system dynamics or even know about system dynamics. And you know, being in Canada and trying to apply system dynamics, I think both Martha and I agree, is sort of a lonely situation. You know, we're on our own, and we don't have a lot of connections with other people in Canada anyways. So but I think that's the case in many countries. You know, there's only a few places in the world that I think, you know, really can help a person who is trying to, you know, get into the field of system dynamics. So so I think this mentorship program is a fabulous initiative by the System Dynamics Society, and I said, and like I say, with this Zoom technology and the ability to basically meet at almost no cost on a weekly basis to pursue the training and the application of system dynamics is just wonderful, a wonderful opportunity that we really need to exploit to the highest level. But again, I'm a little bit different from, for example, Mike, who's got a teaching load and a research load. I'm a retired person who's just basically interested in system dynamics, and I have, you know, all this time on my hands, so I'm very happy to use my time to try to share my love of system dynamics with other people.
Well, I would say as another lonely system dynamics flag bearer, I'm learning myself. And I see that Jean Bellinger is here. I've never met you, but Suzanne actually has met you and has spoken about what you do. And for me, I'm recognizing as a person who comes from a softer science than physics and math, etc. Even that world is foreign to the healthcare community in general, that the human medical community would be no different in general science aptitude and attitude than the veterinary community. But I really do see that the way to tease people from those softer sciences who aren't familiar with system dynamics is to bring them in through the systems thinking cadre. It feels that the global applications of system dynamics are going to be incredibly leveraged by being able to use the word even systems thinking, as opposed to, you just lose people with the word system dynamics and you get into strictly quantitative conversations, and I can see the blinds going down. But I'm frankly, I'm signing myself up for lots of systems thinking courses through the Waters Foundation, and I can just feel it's like this welcoming door to tease people in to the system dynamics world by bringing them in through the door of systems thinking in general, and then fine tuning those who wish to continue from there.
Martha,
I don't know, Jean, what
Martha,
you think.
Could we have a chat sometime about the stealth approach?
Oh, sure. Okay. Yep. I will. Yeah. If you could just leave whatever your preferred email is in the chat, I would love that, Jean, actually.
There have been some questions in the chat. I don't know if Jean, Jacques,
Okay. Thank you.
would you like to speak up, or I can also read it? Have these projects been implemented with success? And if so, can you give references? Ivan, I think he's talking about your mentoring projects, and I think they're work in progress, right?
Yeah, there's most of them are work in progress. Some of them are in very early stages. Some of them have journal articles that have been written on the models that are looking for publication. Some of them have been written up as book chapters for different modeling and simulation books. In terms of business applications, I don't think I have any projects at this point that have, say, for example, been applied to a commercial product. Most of the work is academic, I think, as is typical with system dynamics. But one of the things, like my little policy dynamics company, I'm a practitioner. I'm not an academic, and I think that that there is a need to work a lot harder to bring in practitioners into the system dynamics society, and try to find ways to support them. So yeah, I think I think that's a real important and a great opportunity to see the field expand in the area of practitioners as well.
Well, I agree.
Good. Thank you very much.
So we had a discussion about this a little bit in the learning committee. We talk about a lot of things. One of them was the seminar series, and I actually commented that I think seminar sounds very academic, so we should do something else in the System Dynamics Society called professional development, and that might draw people in more and have trainings. But
Yeah.
it's a lot of men.
Or maybe just, you know, the word applications maybe would be maybe more inviting to a practitioner than a seminar.
Can we just invite people to tea?
Yeah, coffee break time for System Dynamics.
Yeah.
And Cozy has one, right? I remember I saw advertisements on social media about monthly coffee or something like chats.
Really?
Systems engineering.
I see. I haven't seen that. I am associated with the systems in Cozy's organization. I'll have to look that up. Okay, well, that's all I have. You know, the floor is open to continue chatting. And if you have any other comments that you'd like to add, if you feel free to contact me. And if you think this presentation would be useful for another time, of course, I'd always be willing to do it again for another audience. You know, like I said, the presentation that I put together was intended to try to show the mentoring program and show people, you know, how to apply. And, you know, basically it was intended for people who are new to System Dynamics to get involved in the mentorship program. But I think this presentation today has been very useful for vetting the ideas and auditing the ideas and to see whether my message is getting across properly and if it's appropriately done. So I'd really appreciate any feedback anybody has.
Yeah, Ivan, would you send me the 2 slides with the list of all of the projects? So
Sure.
I can just stare at them from time to time in awe
Sure,
as a
I'll do that.
motivator.
Yeah.
I also think you should put them on your website.
Yeah, I have a
idea.
website for Policy Dynamics, and it's got a list of projects that that I personally am working on, and it's got a page for mentorship. So maybe I can expand that page for mentorship to include all my mentees' projects. But I'm just, this is a new thing for me to build. I'm still trying to develop my my brand or whatever for Policy Dynamics.
But one of the missed opportunities of the community, I think, is that there are hundreds of people working on various and sundry different things. And if I begin working on something, wouldn't it be nice to know that there's 3 or 4 other people that have been treading down this path for months that might save me an enormous amount of time if they simply knew that they existed.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm doing now is like you've seen all of my different mentees projects. You've probably noticed that there are some projects with more than one person involved. And so, you know, those are sort of random ideas that somehow I find 2 people with the same interests or 3 people with the same interest, and then we can work together instead of working one-on-one mentoring. It's actually, you know, a group effort. And so, yeah, I think that's also very useful to work in teams. And I think that, you know, in the publishing workshop, assistance workshop, I think that Ed Anderson commented that the age of single author publications is basically over, and that almost all papers now are being written with multiple authors. Yes, Martha?
As I'm an En-ROADS climate ambassador, and so I've been learning workshop facilitation, et cetera, et cetera. And En-ROADS is such a wonderful model for taking the individual and the community to the global trends as are limited by our current software. And people are saying, oh, what about Canada? What about all these, disaggregated projects, which we don't have the software capacity to do so presently. But I think as a person involved in climate activism or interested in it at least, then there is the project Drawdown, and their whole idea is to take the big picture and bring it back down to the individual or the local or organizational level, or that you can sign up as a person, you can sign up as a province, you can sign up as a faith community. It just brings it back down and lets people know who else around your local community, if it's an intellectual community, such as a model building project. What about using the Drawdown philosophy of sharing to bring down these high level thought processes down to the individual, and get together at the community based level on the most minute scale of model from a small team. En-ROADS takes you out to the big picture. Drawdown, the active process of Drawdown seems very much to me bringing down that big high level of view into, well, what can we do at a singular group level to see that we're making an impact, to turn the lights on locally and see what other people are, are they using the same bottle depot or plastics recycling plant, that kind of networking at these very grassroots levels with this global impact kind of background, big picture. It's taking the small picture and looking at the big picture, sort of the radiant thinking mind mapping idea, seeing both at the same time. Where do we fit into the bigger picture?
Yeah. One of the things that Martha and I have discussed in depth is the idea that I think is percolating amongst the organization of the System Dynamics Society, and that is a referral service, where like for example, if someone reaches out to me about a certain field that they want to apply System Dynamics, and either I don't have the time or the expertise to help them, possibly I could go through the society directory or through some society application, and we could find someone else in the society who could work with these people, so or work on this application. So I'm really hoping that the society will pursue this, because like I think Jean is talking about, almost everything in the world is being studied somewhere, and it's just a matter of finding the right people to get together with, to apply System Dynamics or apply their expertise using System Dynamics. Anyways, so yeah, I'd like to see somehow this idea of a service for at least for practitioners, if nothing else, to be able to interact through referrals.
Yeah, Ivan, I just went to Insight Maker and did a search for water. There are over 400 models in Insight Maker at the moment that deal with water.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I think Mike's got a comment too.
Yeah, thanks, Ivan. One of the places I could see a big role going forward for the mentorship program is in partnership with WPI and the System Dynamics Society. We're in the midst of preparing to take our online System Dynamics program to the society in partnership with the System Dynamics Society to modularize everything and to get it out to the larger world. Our assumption is most people are interested in learning how to do system dynamics. They don't necessarily want to enroll as a student at WPI and obtain a degree in system dynamics. Some do, but most people just want to learn how to do it. So we are in the process of modularizing our courses and putting them out there. The System Dynamics Society will market it. And they'll be self-paced. You can take them, work on the stuff at your own pace. When you finish doing the online quizzes and stuff, no human is involved. At that point, you get a certificate of completion. If you complete all the modules for the regular course, there will be a human evaluated something. And then you can earn a badge. Then you might have heard of badges with respect to online MOOCs and things like that. Those will be issued by the society, those credentials. If somebody then wanted to get a graduate course credit, they would have to enroll at WPI and take a capstone experience supervised by a faculty member. And those would be offered on a semester basis. The other stuff would all be self-paced. At the introductory courses, that's going to work fine. Even if we have, graduate students grading somebody's assignment for the badge. But once you get to the advanced courses, now people are really going to need a mentor. When they're asked not to just open a model and do something and use it, but rather to build one based on reading a newspaper article or something, that's where people really get stuck. And that's the barrier to getting people to the point where they can build original models. And that's where mentorship really is helpful. So I could see that the mentors really being asked to participate. There's probably a revenue share involved with that as well, of course. So we can't underestimate the value, particularly at the upper levels of system dynamics of mentorship.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, if there's any way I can help, I'll do it. So yeah, I think that, like you say, I work with both, very early beginners and people who are fairly advanced, but maybe not, fully developed people. So my goal is to get them to a level of competency and confidence that they can build models themselves. So I think that fits in well with what you're saying, Mike.
Sorry to interrupt, but we're 1 minute past the hour, and I just want to remind people in case they have a meeting after this. But I have some free time if people would like to stay and continue talking about how to improve.
Yeah, I'm free till 1:30 if people want to stay.
Should I stop the recording though?
Sure, go ahead and stop the recording.